a lot of chalk blowing up in the air from that one. Hello, Sean O'Brien, the Fit S.O.B. here. We have another program review today. This is one I'm very excited for because it holds a special place in my heart. To put it bluntly, I don't think I would be a fitness professional today if this program didn't exist. So I'm coming in with a hefty amount of bias. However, I've got a lot of bias coming from the other direction on the grounds that this is the notorious fake Merc, Jason Blaha himself.
And I trained at the farm at Langley. Anyone who knows what that is knows what that means.
Now, what I won't be getting into in this review is Blaha, his weird claims on the internet, his habit of making bullets while he is talking about fitness. It's not that I don't think that's interesting to get into, but it's completely besides the point. What I want to assess is the program itself, and that program is Ice Cream Fitness. Now, you may be asking yourself, why is it called Ice Cream Fitness? I don't know, but it is the first program that I ever participated in that involved the main barbell lifts, squats, bench press, deadlift, overhead press. It's the first time I really consciously incorporated those into my programming, and it started me on the path that I'm on today. So I definitely found value in it, but the question remains, should this be your first program? Let's take a look. As a reminder, I grade programs on 5 criteria. Each is given a score between 0 and 2 for a total score at the end of something between 0 and 10. The criteria are effectiveness, does it deliver the results that it promises? Usability, is it reasonably easy to set up? Can you perform the program in the setting that it tells you to perform it in? Flexibility, does it give you the ability to make changes if you have to? Does it give you everything you need to make those changes for yourself? Enjoyability, is it fun? Is it fulfilling? Is it something that's going to make you want to keep coming back? And value, for the dollars that you're spending, are you getting a reasonable amount in return? Now, to give you kind of a primer on Ice Cream Fitness before I get into the gradings, it is an A-B style, 3 times a week barbell-based program. It is very consciously spinning off of Strong Lifts 5x5. In fact, in his video on the program, he explains that how he arrived at it was he would often explain to novices that they should take Strong Lifts 5x5 and then add some of their own accessories to it. Now, if you're not familiar with Strong Lifts 5x5, I'm gonna make a whole other video on that one at some point, but basically it is a bare bones program where you do 5 sets of 5 reps on a handful of basic compound barbell exercises. It's a great way to get to know these movements and get tons of practice in. So when assessing the effectiveness of Ice Cream Fitness, what we have to assess it on is, does it do something better or worse than Starting Strength or Strong Lifts 5x5, which more or less follow the same structure? So let's get into the gradings. For effectiveness, I'm going to give it a 1. For a total beginner who is getting into this program, speaking even from my own experience, I got a lot out of it. I did see strength gains. I did get a lot of practice. It did encourage me to keep coming back. It also keeps it relatively simple. You're going to be doing sets across, which means that you pick a weight and you do it for all 5 sets of each of the lifts that you do. 2 to 3 minutes is what I think he recommends as the rest interval. I think that makes total sense. You just add 5 pounds every time you come back. Now, you're squatting 3 times a week, which means you're adding 15 pounds potentially to your squat every single week. For novices, that's actually surprisingly doable. So by and large, I would say that the effectiveness points are definitely there. Where I detract effectiveness points is on 2 things. One is on the choice of adding a lot of accessory work, which I don't necessarily dislike in and of itself. I remember enjoying it at the time, but the reasoning behind it is a little fishy to me, talking about how beginners need more direct arm work, ab work, low back work, and even upper traps. He actually puts shrugs into the program. I don't really understand why. And even in his own follow-up video a few years later, I believe he remarked that if he were to rewrite the program, he would have removed the shrugs from it. So even by his own admission, it's kind of a junk volume accessory in this context. As far as the logic behind adding the arm work, I don't really think I agree. You're doing compound movements that involve rowing every single workout, and pressing every single workout. That involves the biceps and involves the triceps. For a total novice, for someone who's been lifting for less than a year, chances are that is plenty of work. I definitely believe that as you progress in your training, it becomes more valuable to include those types of isolation movements. But in the context of the program as written, being that it is for novices, I think that it's overkill. This isn't to say that I don't think that beginners should have a high degree of movement variety in their programming. I actually do. I think variability of practice is very useful, but we have to be strategic in our choices. And saying that there's not enough low back work and therefore we need hyperextensions, even though you are squatting 15 hard sets a week and deadlifting 1 hard set of 5 in addition to that, your low back is getting plenty of work out of that. If your low back is not being stimulated by all that, you are doing something really fucked up, or your squats are just so upright that you're just kind of like sitting straight down. And in either case, I don't think that just adding 2 sets of 10 hyperextensions is that important in the grand scheme. So that's effectiveness. On the usability front, I also give this a 1. It's pretty bare bones, and in the way it's presented on muscleandstrength.com, every exercise name links to a demo video. You are on your own when it comes to logging your weights. Now, the way the program is written, it should be pretty intuitive to anybody who is performing it that yes, you have to write your weights down. You have to track what you do session to session. You are expected to progress in a linear fashion, adding weight every single time. How are you supposed to do that if you didn't write down what you did? I got really passionate about that there. Honestly, I don't think that it is the responsibility of Jason Blaha or Muscle and Strength to provide a logbook app or whatever. It's fine. I use the Notes app on my phone to track my sessions. If you must use an app, you can download a free one like Boost Camp and do it that way. And of course, you're always welcome to do what people have done since before the invention of smartphones, which is bring a notebook to the gym and just write what you do down. The instructions are primarily available in an 18-minute video that he made, so you do get quite a bit of additional information about what you're supposed to do. The video is fine. It's pretty old looking. The audio is crap. You can't really see what he's writing down on his whiteboard, but considering that it's a free program, the main value is him providing these explanations of what you're supposed to do. If you need to take notes, take notes. You can always revisit it. I think that's fine. The part that gets a little weird and deducts a little bit from it for me is that the exercises that are listed on the website in some cases are different than what he describes in his walkthrough video. I'm not entirely sure why. I don't think it's that big of a problem. For example, he says to do skull crushers for your triceps, but on the website you can clearly see that it's tricep extensions, which is presented as a tricep push down when you follow the video link. Again, not really that big of a ding. If anything, I think it highlights the fact that the movements being selected for those slots are quite interchangeable, and that's fine. You just pick the one that you like. But I really think that especially for a novice-focused program, it's important to remove any cause for confusion. Just being a little more specific in the wording and explanations of that would be helpful. I actually also do like the use of programmed weight resets. Basically, his instructions are if you are unable to complete the 5 sets of 5 at a certain weight 2 sessions in a row, then you subtract the load by 10% and you start the progression again from that lesser load. I like that. I think it makes sense. Because the fact is there are lifts in this program, in any linear progression program for novices, that will stall out much more quickly than others. Your squat and deadlift will probably be able to progress quite consistently for quite a while if you're new to them. Whereas your bench press, and especially your overhead press, and maybe even your row, the upper body movements basically, like they are going to stall out. And they're going to stall out while you still have gains to attain on the low body movements. Like this is hard training. And even novices are not going to be able to add weight to every exercise forever. It's just not how this works. So having something written in to make it possible to reassess what you're doing lift by lift, taking a little bit of weight off and continuing to train while you continue progressing on your other lifts, thumbs up from me. The thing that I don't like, what he prescribes is testing your 5 rep max on all of these lifts in advance of starting the program, which for a novice, you may never have even done them before. So you're going from having never done this to doing a 5 rep max test. I don't love that as an idea. And the other major factor there is, of course, from a practicality standpoint, your 1 rep max, because you're doing your 5 rep max to calculate your 1 rep max. He just tells you to Google 1 rep max calculator, input that data in, that's fine, whatever. And then you start your 5 rep sets that first session with 75% of your estimated 1 rep max. For an intermediate trainee, doing something like this makes a lot of sense. You have a pretty fixed idea month to month of what your 1 rep max is. Whereas for beginners, your 1 rep max is such a constantly moving target that within a week, it's already changed. And plus, 75% is actually pretty heavy to start at. I think for a lot of people, that is going to handicap your progression. It is going to make you stall out much more quickly than you otherwise could. And starting a little too heavy, while definitely great for the ego, it is fun to work hard in the gym when you're just getting started and want to feel like you're really getting something out of it. I would definitely advocate that if you're new to these exercises, that it makes sense to start really, really sub-maximal. Start with something really light that feels very easy to do, and then start adding weight week to week. My cat is raising up a shitstorm in here, and I'm going to have to remove her from the premises. What I personally advocate for is start with something extra light, something you know you are confident in doing. Or you can do what is often advocated for in something like the strong lifts context, which is just start with the empty bar. Yes, it is easy to do that, at least ideally. And that's a good thing because you can focus now on just developing really solid technique. Most of your strength gains when you are beginning a program like this are going to come from neurological adaptations. They're going to come from the actual act of practicing with the lifts. It takes weeks to reach a point where you're actually seeing muscular adaptation. And that's fine. That is how it's supposed to work. But if you ease back a little bit, check the ego and focus on just getting really good form and then letting the weight gradually catch up to where you're at, you will likely find yourself stalling out way farther in the future, and the weight on the bar will probably be much heavier than it would have been than if you had started heavy and then just kept going until you stalled out. As far as flexibility goes, once again, I'm going to give it a 1. He does present exercise substitutions, particularly for the accessories, things like the arm movements. He usually gives at least 2 options, and I think that's great, making it very clear that these are more or less interchangeable. For bicep curls straight up, it's just anything that bends the elbow, so you just pick your favorite exercise that you can do consistently. But he's a little bit obtuse about some other things, and in the written FAQ section, he even goes as far as to say that if you want to sub out things like the deadlift or the squat for any reason, unless you have an injury, he says just don't. Basically, you literally cannot perform this program at all unless you have consistent access to a barbell, a squat rack, and some plates. Now, on the one hand, that can be very good on the usability front, right? Because it is something you can theoretically do anywhere. You can do it at a home gym. You can do it at kind of a bare bones garage style gym, or you can do it at a big box gym as long as they have that equipment. And I think it is a good idea for that reason to devote early time as a trainee to learning how to do these exercises, because you can do them anywhere regardless of what else your environment has access to. But to say that these exercises are essential and that there is no substitution that can be done for them is kind of ridiculous. Are you really going to claim to me, Jason, that nobody in human history ever got strong before the invention of the Olympic barbell? Or that nobody with only access to dumbbells can ever get strong or get muscular? That is some bro-y dogma that I think everybody should just completely ignore. Long and short of it, there's no such thing as essential exercises. There are movement types that I think everybody should do, but there's a lot of ways to execute them. You can do it with body weight only, dumbbells, machines. If you are dedicated enough to getting into shape, you can do it on a bare patch of floor. He also says in response to one of the FAQs of, can I add cardio to the program? He says you don't need it. Specifically, he says you'll get the same benefits from heavy lifting. Now, all that really tells me is that he doesn't understand how human energy systems work, and that's too bad. On the enjoyability front, once again, I give it a 1. It's enjoyable coming back to the gym and adding weight every single time. At least I find it that way, and I know a lot of other people do. If you're someone who gets fulfillment out of consistently hitting PRs, then this program will deliver that for sure. And it is something that when you're starting your training journey, that can be very important because that's what keeps you coming back. That is where that initial fulfillment comes from. So when those gains start to slow down, you're already pretty bought in. But goodness gracious, the amount of time you have to spend per workout is getting hefty. With all these accessory movements that are added in, you're looking at 90 minutes in the gym every time you go in. Now, it's only 3 times a week for sure, but even that might be a lot if you're spending an hour and a half just in the weight room. It's definitely less monotonous than something like Strong List 5x5, which is as minimalist as you can possibly get. But the fact is that unless you're finding creative ways to superset everything, which on its own is probably going to get pretty exhausting because most of these exercises are very full body, they're very taxing, they take a while to set up, you're going to be friggin' tired by the end of these sessions. And if you are someone who really would have preferred a tight 40 to 60 minute session, get in, get out, get the work done, this program is going to feel like a bit of a meat grinder. And finally, on value, I give it a 2. It's free. There's a good explanation video. The FAQ content helps clarify further questions. I guess that's redundant. Yes, that's how FAQ works. And the structure of the workouts themselves is frankly pretty good. It prioritizes the more difficult movements at the beginning, works its way down to the easier and lower priority movements. I think it sets a good template for how a good workout should look for someone who hasn't done this before. So by and large, I'd say full points for value. Honestly, you could do a lot worse. So that gives us a total of 6 out of 10, and I do think that's pretty fair. All in all, novices could definitely do a lot worse than this program. Oddball choices and kind of dogmatic elements aside, if you want to learn the barbell movements, build up some basic strength, build up some confidence in the gym, this will get you there. This will absolutely make that happen for you. I do have some suggestions though, in terms of how to make modifications to the program to accommodate your needs if, for example, you do find that it's a little bit too long in the gym every single time that you're in there. And of course, to get the progression to work a little bit better for you. Because that linear progression will run out sooner or later. It has to. That's a physiological necessity. Otherwise, you would see people deadlifting and squatting 1,000-pound barbells on their back because they just kept adding 5 pounds. Realistically speaking, that will taper off, and it'll taper off faster if you start too heavy. That's actually what happened to me. My advice is if you're going to perform this program, start with the empty bar. For the deadlift, start with empty bar and 10-pound bumper plates if you have access. That is really going to get you a lot more quality practice on these movements with reasonable loads. And then you're going to be able to, just through adding 5 or adding 10 pounds to the bar every session, you are going to catch up to what your actual strength limits are. It will happen, but you'll have gotten so much quality practice by that point that as the weight gets heavier, your form will be much more consistent and you'll feel much more confident with it. If you have the option of training 4 days instead of 3, I'm actually going to show you an alternative version of the program here. What I've tried to do is reduce it to just 4 exercises per session, 2 mains and then 2 accessories. Note that in addition to, of course, condensing how long you're in the gym, the volume of exercises that target the same muscles has been better separated, allowing for potentially better performance on the lifts because you're not already tired in those muscle groups. For example, now there's only one pushing type movement per workout, right? You'll do either a bench press or an overhead press or a triceps movement or close grip bench press, right? You're only doing one of those per session. So yeah, that's it. That's my review of Ice Cream Fitness. Honestly, I do think there are better beginner focused programs out there, but if this program speaks to you, give it a try. If in the meantime, if you have any other programs you would like me to take a look at, please note them in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching and go get friggin' strong.